Welcome back to Animal Crossing New Horizons. I'm dear darling, as you see what's going on our lovely island of Fawnhallow today. We're recording a bit late because, oh, I didn't press A, there you go. We had D&D today and I didn't have time to record beforehand, so here we are recording afterwards instead. It was an interesting session. It was a bit of a shorter one, because one of our players wasn't feeling as well, but it was basically a pretty casual one. There was just more revelations going on, where basically this time they had a research paper which they stole. I think it must have been like 10 sessions ago almost now, and they have a smart DMPC who knows about this sort of stuff read it, and today they basically got the feedback from it. And yeah, good evening everyone. Right now in Fawnhallow it's 10:56 p.m. on Monday, October 20th, 2025. It's very interesting, I would say, because it's a made up like scientific paper, quote quote, about the structure of magic, which, I mean, the science of how magic works, quote quote, is not that rigorous in my world, technically. Like I use it as a vague analogy for energy, but it also, you know, energy actually exists, I assume, in this world, and the systems of which contain it probably aren't always coherent or probably aren't entirely consistent with each other, but I've tried to make them as consistent as I can. You know, I've put some decent thought into how the magic might work and interact with things, and today was basically the day of like, well, let's put it to the test, where basically for like 15 minutes or so I roleplayed. Okay, I don't think it was that long, but maybe it was, I don't know. The character giving like a mini lecture about the things that they discovered and what came of it. Part of me was like, oh, I hope they don't quiz me on it. I hope it like mostly went over their head and they can just pick up like the cliff notes or whatever from it afterwards. But one of the players actually did ask quite a few good follow-up questions, and then there were some other good like follow-up notes as well from a different player. So, you know, and part of me was, certainly, you know, peek behind the curtain, was getting a bit worried, being like, oh no, you know, I wonder if there's something which I forgot, and then, you know, it's all going to come, not crashing down, because obviously if it did come crashing down, that's a bit extreme, but my players might be like, oh, that doesn't really make sense, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, I guess it doesn't. But it seemed not to, and not only that, my players actually correctly, or not correctly, drew quite a few conclusions from the knowledge that they accrued, which certainly means, I guess, it's consistent enough for it to make sense that they could apply it to other situations, and that I was pretty happy about. I was like, oh, sigh of relief that it makes sense, because it's very difficult, I would say, giving a lecture in a made-up subject which you don't know about. It certainly takes quite a lot of improvisational ability, I would say. But I think it went decently well, because it is something I've thought a decent amount about. It's also something which, you know, has been a plot point for a while, so, you know, I've had time to be able to sort of prepare for it. And at the end of the day, it doesn't need to make 100% sense. If it's something which doesn't quite make sense, or if it doesn't, you know, it's not always consistent, as long as it gets a point across in the story and is not necessarily intentionally misleading, then that works pretty well, methinks. Does it? I don't know. I suppose TBD, TBH. But I think it kind of does. But yeah, is it one of the harder things that I've had to improvise? Probably it's up there, I think. There was one time I improvised like an entire like funeral procession speech and poem, but that one was like very much self-inflicted, because it didn't have to be improvised like that, and I just thought, let's go for it, let's see if I can do it, and I kind of did it. This one, it wasn't so much improvised, like, I mean, none of it is like really improvised, like all of it is like the knowledge is there, but I don't write it down like word for word exactly what I'm going to say. So this one included, so there was a lot of me just being like, I hope I'm saying this like correctly, does this make sense, is this something I missed out, will this be something which will come back to bite me later for how I describe something? And the answer could be maybe, I would say, to all of these. But we don't know until it happens. So, yeah, you know, if it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't. So why stress about it, I guess? Well, I suppose the answer to stress about it is like if it ends up causing a lot of effort or something, I guess. But that's not what we're here about. That's not what That's not what I'm here to say. Yeah. That's that, I guess. It is interesting, because in my mind, it kind of makes sense. I don't think it's 100% perfect, mind you, exactly how the internal logic works, but it was definitely one of the earlier plot points, which I think made it, or sorry, not earlier plot points as in early in the story, but more like early from the creation. So a lot of things could branch out from me thinking about it, being like, oh, how would this redefine how something like this works, etc, etc. But yeah, now I don't want to go too much into it because it's something which could potentially affect both campaigns necessarily. I mean, you can see which parts of the campaigns I created when, with the idea of doing one campaign, and which parts I created under the guise of doing, not the guise, but under the assumption of doing two. Some of them split together from the same seed born of, I don't know, circumstance. And is that a bad thing? Of course not. Why would that be a bad thing? Just an interesting thing, I suppose. Like oh, you know, you get me? That wasn't a very descriptive, like, word, but it was just more like, that is it, in a way. That is how we swing it, that is how it goes. And yeah. It's, I don't know. In some ways it was quite self-indulgent in a way, because it was sort of like, alright, I'm going to give you a lore drop. Is this at all means good storytelling technique? No, not really. But allow me to brag about the world I've made. You know, allow me to brag about the stuff that I thought of coherently for the world, the amount of things tied into certain interactions, tied into certain mechanics, definitions of the world. And yeah, and basically give my DMPC a little bit of a character arc. Obviously, her character arc, or their character arcs, I suppose, take a backseat to replace character arcs, because, I mean, I can always write the story myself if I so choose. I'm the player and the controller. But there are times sometimes where I think it comes out most, and a lot of the other times where there's scientific explanations or magical explanations, I will just like start explaining it and then be like, and the character continues on like that for a bit. You can choose to ignore her, essentially. She's very much someone who, once you get her talking about something she loves, she won't stop, sort of thing. Yeah, I do love playing her. And if this was if anything, like if this was like a series of episodes, they'll be like, whoa, it's the rare this character episode. I don't know why I'm being so vague about it. The character's called Dady. And she's my character with a Minnesotan accent, which I don't always get 100% right, so I apologise anyone from Minnesota. But I'm doing my best. Yeah. So yeah, allow me to indulge in the character of my own choosing, the character I created, the character I've made for this world, such that she can feel like she has her place in it too, you know? That's all I ask for. So I'm glad that she gets this opportunity, if anything. Because it is fun. It's fun to flex in certain ways. It's fun to sort of just show off and be like, here we go. This is what we're doing, you know? This is what we've done. And yeah, she genuinely is an absolute delight to voice, because she's so like... She's... you know, to get to my own horn, she makes for a very good DMPC. I feel like it'd be very easy to just not find quite the right balance, I suppose, between a character who gives all the answers away and a character who doesn't like really interact with the others, you know? She's good for a guy for like guidance, I suppose, and illumination, but she's not going to spell out the answer for you necessarily. Nor should she, nor would it make sense to. I don't know. Allow me to be a bit braggadocious. You know, and I put a lot of thought into the DMPC and thinking how they should balance out the group's dynamics. And I think it feels sort of comfortable in the end. I mean, I guess I am kind of cheating by the fact I have 2 DMPCs in a way. But yeah. I don't know. Like, what I basically mean to say is going on an improvised sort of talk, lecture, is pretty difficult, you know. Especially if you have people who you might be like, oh, they might not criticize it per se, but I think that's a bit extreme, but they might sort of strongly evaluate and like try and follow along with what you're saying. You know, it's a lot easier if people go, you know, whatever, technical mumbo jumbo. I mean, you go, okay, cool, I can kind of say whatever and it'll just be accepted as fact. But I do want to put in that extra effort to make it feel coherent, because if it is coherent, you do get moments like we got in today's session where the players can independently put together some of the clues and be like, oh, if that's the case, then this might be a possibility. And I get to sit here all smugly be like, they're catching on to something. Because as I say, there is no better feeling as a DM than the players interacting with your world. And that comes in many forms, one of them being engaged with it enough to be able to try and sit down and like put together all the pieces that they're missing, try and figure out exactly how the story goes, and being able to do so. Which means you struck a very nice balance of it being a challenge enough that it's not immediately obvious, but coherent enough that all the puzzle pieces come together. Now, mind you, they haven't followed through with everything yet because they didn't have enough time or anything. But I was basically saying, it's now a running joke in that campaign that basically every single session is now like a big revelation, because they just have like a really important conversation which reveals something. Some of them were obviously meant to reveal something. They were meant to be like those big revelations. Some of them, revelation almost came out of nowhere, just from like an offhanded comment that they said, and I was like, well, it doesn't make sense not to reveal it now, I suppose, with that context. So yeah, I think that really can be like an improviser's like a test of your mettle of how well you can improvise. Obviously my thing was not entirely improvised, it was only like structure on a micro level improvised, but structurally it was not improvised. It's just how well can you do that? How well can you go on a coherent tirade about a fake academic paper, essentially? Is it a good litmus test? No, probably not. Like, how on earth do you judge that? It depends on character to character. But it certainly, I think, gave me some sort of confidence boost, in a way. Lots of things can do that when you DM. You know, the most thing I get a confidence boost is like, this is the way I want it to kind of, not the way I want it to happen. Like, this is, like, I want this to be a clue that they derive from it, or I want this to be a prompt about it, so I want this to make them think about that, and then they do. And you're like, yes. Obviously, that is credit to my friends, to my players as well. It is not just me, myself, and I within this, you know? It is a combination of all of us that together are able to recreate something greater than the sum of its parts, you know? Yeah, I don't know, a fake lecture. Is it me or is my Fawnhallow getting crunchier and crunchier every single time I do it? It's quite amusing, I think, seeing it happen. I think I must be saving it as like, no, it's being saved as a PNG. How does it look more and more like a JPEG every single day? If anything, its deterioration should probably be even more of an indication that I should really finish off the actual thumbnail art, but here we go. Here we go, yo, what's the scenario? Yeah, because I think some emotions like that are pretty hard to like improvise. Or sorry, personality traits maybe are quite difficult to improvise. And Brennan Lee Mulligan from Dropout fame, or College Humor Days, or now Critical Role, has this unbelievable ability to just go on these long-winded tirades about anything and everything that he knows and is passionate about, which I don't know if I want to be like that all the time, obviously, but I'm always thoroughly impressed at his ability to do so, because it makes for very engaging moments. Like, it gives a whole layer, a whole like different class of characters which you can tap upon, like the type to be able to just to rant about something just like that, or go on and explain something in great detail. That's a very difficult one to bring up, I think, improvisationally. Am I there yet? No, probably not. But the ones who talk super fast, who are meant to be super energetic and overbearing, very difficult, I think, or one of the harder ones to improvise for. Be extremely energetic and be extremely smart. Very difficult to what's the word? Improvise for. Speak in the character of, speak in dialogue of. Not so that I don't think I'm smart or anything. I'm not going to sell myself short. But it is difficult, I think, to improvisationally speak in that regard, huh? Anyway, on that note, I'm going to round this episode off here. So if you have been watching, thank you very much. It's been Animal Crossing New Horizons. I've been Dear Darling. Likes, comments, subscription, shares, greatly appreciated. Socials, Discord down below. Hope to see you again, but for now, it's our farewell. So until next time, bye-bye for now.